Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, the DRF race of the day for Thursday, May the 5th. Race number 10 at Churchill Downs. Nice turf sprint for the fillies and mares going 5.5. It's the Unbridled Sidney. $200,000 is the purse. Let's take a look at this field. There are some very competitive horses in this race. As you see by the morning line, it is a very interesting and well-matched field. Change of control, the number 5 is 3-1 on the morning line, Mike. She is the kind of mare that usually has the tactical speed to work out a good trip. She just fell so far behind last time out at Keeneland. What gives?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a very good question. And she does feel like a mare where trips are pretty important to her, Dan. So we'll see if she can, maybe stay a little close. I think the good news for change of control in here is, generally speaking, when the paces are slow in her races, she's right up close. And there is just not a lot of pace in this race.
Perfect segue to our Timeform US pace projector. I'll also remind you to view those free formulator past performances on the Race of the Day event page at drf.com. It's through a gray bar scenario, no speed, and I'm not sure if it's going to be glacial up front. Ambassador Luna is a fast horse. Going Good does have speed. I will say one thing about the number 4, In Good Spirits, Mike. Watching some of her races, she has a very underrated break from the gate. She usually breaks on top.
Yeah. That's a really good point, Dan. You're right. She's very alert from the start. Since they've cut her back to concentrate on sprints, her form has actually improved, but it's sort of taken away, a little bit of that front running style that she had in her longer races. I think it's a very good point you bring up, though. If she breaks alertly like she usually does, it might just be a good idea for Johnny V to just go on with it and try to cut this pace.
Now, a horse that might be coming from the back of the pack is the number 1, Social Chatter, 15-1 on the morning line. Rafael Bejarano takes the mount. This horse, I thought, ran an underrated race on turf 2 starts back because she fell just so far behind. I didn't think the pace was blazing. She came with an okay late run. I'm not really that interested in her most recent performance over the synthetic. A slow break didn't help that day. She's going to need some pace and race luck, but I think she's a little bit better than she looks on paper.
Yeah, I agree with all those things. I mean, I don't know if this trip is necessarily going to work out for her because in none of her turf races so far has she shown any speed. And so I guess that could be a real issue for her. Like you, Dan, I thought her race at Keeneland 2 back, I thought she ran really well in there in a race where she basically had no chance. The 1, 2, 3 finishers all right up on the pace together the entire way. She's the only one who made up any ground in there. I just feel like she's run well in all of her turf starts. So I could look at her at a big price and say, hopefully this trip will work out and she'll improve a little bit in her 4-year-old debut.
And there's a very good chance we've yet to see her best yet, while we probably have seen the best of the more fancied runners at the tote, horses that have run 18, 19, 20 times. This is a very lightly raced horse. Brooke Marie, I think, has been managed beautifully by trainer Eddie Keneally. The number 2 will be ridden by Luis Saez. Shipped to Southern California to go down the hill last time out. Let's watch that 6.5 furlong event. To Monrovia. She got a great ride in this race. There just was not a lot of pace. She parked herself off of the early leader. I think, as a lot of horses do, she got confused crossing that dirt patch, but once she gets straightened out, I think she wins this race a little bit easier than it looks. She's pretty much hand-ridden the last 16th or so.
Yeah, it's a pretty game win for her, and you're right, it may be a little easier than it looks too. Down there on the rail, the number 2 there, and the pink was Toby's Heart, who's also back in this race, Dan. And Toby's Heart, you can see, got a real look at that thing about mid-stretch before she just flattened out. Brooke Marie, it was a really nice trip for her, but that's just the kind of mare that she is, Dan. She's very tactical. If the pace is fast, she'll sit off of it. If they go a little bit slower, they'll put her right up on the pace, and that could be a real big advantage for her in a race like this.
And while going down the hill at 6.5 furlongs, transfer into this 5.5. That's 2 different ball games. She has run very well at 5.5. That's Mike's versatility that he's talking about for Brooke Marie. She's a strong contender in this race. Ambassador Luna won this race in 2020 when it was washed off of the turf. She was a pretty good turf sprinter to start her career, and then she kind of lost her way a little bit. She did run very well over soft turf 4 starts back in the Franklin County at Keeneland. She was a gigantic priced. She ran second, and she might get a soft turf course again at Churchill Downs on Thursday. Her last race, they ran her on synthetic. I thought it was a good-looking performance. Obviously, this is a different ball game, but I think that the lack of pace in this race works to her advantage, and a soft turf really helps.
Yeah, I think both of those things are true. It makes her dangerous. I didn't love her turf form last year, Dan, but going back to her form as a 4-year-old back in 2020, she ran several races that are going to give her a real look in here. You mentioned that soft turf race last October at Keeneland, where she was a good second at a big price. Going back to the prior year, she ran a 95 buyer on soft turf at Ellis Park. So if there's rain in this forecast, it helps the source.
In Good Spirits is the number 4. And we talked about how this horse beats the gate often, but she's also tactical enough where she can sit off the pace. It's exactly what happened 2 starts back at Kentucky Downs, going 6.5 furlongs, where she broke sharp, then she settled on the outside, then she altered course inside the leader at the very end, and she finished up
Yeah.
strong. Last time out at Keeneland, again, she broke well. She didn't run as well that day, but that was just run over a monsoon. I mean, okay, I'm not going to say she doesn't like soft turf because of that race, because they basically swam in the Buffalo Trace Franklin County.
Yeah, that was a bad turf course. So we'll see. Listen, I'm not going to try to predict the weather right now. We'll see how the conditions are and who it affects and who it helps in this race coming up. I appreciate that In Good Spirits. It felt like she maybe improved when they finally cut her back to sprint last year, Dan. I think she did run some good races. I guess the signature race for her would be that Kentucky Downs, which that's a totally different race than this one. Prior to that, in the Caress, she was second to Caravel, who was really good at that time, but I kind of felt like she was a little bit of a suck-up second there. She never really looked like she was ever going to win that race. I don't know. She's interested in here. I tried really hard to talk myself into her, and I couldn't do it.
Change of Control, the number 5. We talked about her in the Open and how she fell so far behind last time out at Keeneland in the Giants Causeway. She swung to the far outside. She came with a good run. I was a little disappointed that she couldn't get up for third over Going Gold, but all in all, it was yet another rock-solid performance for a mare that seems to bring it each and every time. Now, her last victory came at Aqueduct back in November. She had a perfect trip that day, but she's the kind of mare that can get those kind of trips.
Yeah, especially if the pace is slow, and it feels like this pace is going to be slow. And I think that'll leave her in a pretty good position early on in this race. Dan, she's run, several races that just make her really, really tough in here. She's another horse who appreciates cutting the ground. So if she gets that, it probably just moves her up. I don't know. I know she's the morning line favorite. I think there's just a lot to like about her.
Catch a Bid, the number 6, is cutting all the way back in distance for trainer Joe Sharp, and she does have a potent stretch kick. She got up 4 second in that race at Kentucky Downs behind In Good Spirits, but look at the pace situation. Look at the Timeform US pace projector. Considering she's cutting all the way back in distance, she might have too much to do when they turn for home.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too. She actually acquitted herself pretty well the few times they sprinted her last year. Didn't win any of those races, but made it close a couple of times, and I thought she ran fine. I don't like the way this race is projecting to set up for her, Dan. And she's cutting back again now. It just feels like she's going to be last early and might just have too much to do in this race.
The 7 is Going Good, and this horse might be ready for her best in her third start off of a lengthy layoff. And I thought she had an excuse or a two last time out in the Giants Causeway at Keeneland, because she likes to be tactically placed. She didn't break very well. She steadied on the backstretch, and as we turn for home, she has a lot of work to do, and she is able to split rivals, and I thought was very game to finish third. She's run some fast races on her page, and I think she can get a lot closer to the pace this time around.
Yeah, I agree with you. She does have enough tactical speed to get a better position in this race. She had trouble early in this spot here, and then just couldn't really make a real impact at the end. Right to her outside the 5 there. That's change of control, Dan. They're going to basically hit the wire together there, and it's Going Good who got the head bob for third. I don't know. She's another horse. If she was some kind of halfway decent price in here, I'd be happy to give her a shot. If she's one of the favorites, like the morning line suggests, I don't know. I feel like I would just rather go in a different direction. She can win this race, but I'm not, I wouldn't be thrilled to take a super short price on her.
Toby's Heart's the number 8. Jose Ortiz aboard for trainer Brian Lynch. It'll be her second start off of a short layoff. And we saw her finish third in the Monrovia, won by Brooke Marie. She was the beaten favorite that day, but I think she was taken a little bit out of her element by the slow pace. In my opinion, I could very well be wrong here. I think she's at her best when she is a one-run closer. She got a very good trip in the race, but I think she was up close to the pace, and I think she's a lot better when others kind of knock themselves out in front of her.
I think that's a really good point, Dan. I also think, and I know that was 6.5, and she's won going 6.5 in the past at Kentucky Downs. I feel like Toby's Heart is at her absolute best when they go short sprint distances with her, which they haven't done that often. 3 times in her career, they've run her 5.5. She won all 3 of those races, and she was really impressive, I thought, winning all of them. I think this is what she really wants to do, Dan. I'm concerned that there's not a lot of pace in this race, and I feel like it could really affect her. But I'm not so sure that over this distance on the turf, I'm not so sure that Toby's Heart isn't the best horse.
Mike, I wonder if the 9 Bullseye Beauty is a little bit of a sleeper in here because she's been plying her trade most of her career over synthetic surfaces and she's done pretty well. But she made her seasonal debut last time out at Keeneland on the turf and she ran pretty well. We're going to watch that race right now. This is going 5.5 at Keeneland and she's got a lot to do. She's near the back of the pack, near the inside. She's running out of room. She does get a decent enough closer's trip where she alters course to the outside behind a fast pace, and she runs on well for second. The trip did work out for her in this race, and if she has to pull this trip with this kind of pace scenario against this field, she could be up against it.
Yeah, it's true. She definitely made up an awful lot of ground late in that race, though. It did feel like a nice performance from her, and she, just ran out of time there. Otherwise, she was going to win that race with a new top figure to boot. So I think those things are all positives for her. I know it's a different surface, but in her synthetic races, she's been a little bit more tactical, Dan. She's been able to sort of keep herself at least, within range of the leaders in mid-pack or something like that. So if she can pull a trip like that in this kind of race, maybe she can kick this field down.
Friends, exciting time, of course, to be a racing fan with the Kentucky Oaks and Derby coming up this week. Please hit the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel to get the latest videos from DRF TV. Top pick time for Thursday's race of the day, the Unbridled Sidney. Mike, you're going to go with Social Chatter. The running style might not work out, but I do agree that on paper, she's better than she looks, and she's going to be a really good price.
Yeah, that's why I ultimately went that way. Then I was gonna put Toby's Heart on top. She was the other horse for me, and I just felt like the pace works against both of them equally. It feels like, and Social Chatter is just going to be a much better price in this race. And I do think she has a chance to be good, so I'll take a shot with her.
I wanted to look for value in here as well. Ambassador Luna is 12-1 on the morning line. I think she got a confidence booster last time out at Turfway Park. Timeform US believes she won't be adversely affected by the pace scenario, and the prospect of a wet turf course really works to her advantage. I'll take a shot. 3-2-7-5 for me, 1-2-5-8 for Mike. It's the Unbridled Sidney, Thursday's feature at Churchill Downs. Good luck.